Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're diving into a new manhwa, which promises an epic journey with high-stakes action, powerful abilities, and a protagonist who's seen it all. If you're a fan of power fantasy and reincarnation themes, you're in for a treat. So, grab your snacks and let's get started. The world of our protagonist is known as Tianwu. In this vast Tianwu continent, where the strong rule and the weak perish, the path to power is paved with blood and determination. Under a dark and turbulent sky, the heavens rumble with thunder. Streaks of lightning illuminate a desolate mountain, radiating an ominous golden glow. At the mountain's base, a lone figure stands, a shadow against an overwhelming force. The air is heavy with ancient energy as intricate golden symbols light up the mountain's surface. These runes seem alive, pulsing with power that transcends time and space. Suddenly, a booming voice echoes from the void, Li Yun Xiao. A chalk flies towards a person giving us the first look of our protagonist. Yun Xiao opens his eyes, his mind flooded with unfamiliar memories. He looks around, dazed, and begins to process the situation. These memories are not his, or are they? Information begin to flood his mind. This is the year of 1033 of the Sky Martial Calendar. 15 years have passed since he died on the Tiandang Mountain. As his thoughts settle, Yun Xiao begins to understand. He has been reborn with the memories of his previous life. In his previous life, he was Gu Feiyang, the peerless martial sovereign who had once dominated the Tianwu continent. One of the 10 titled martial sovereign. Yun Xiao looks out at the statue beyond his window, thinking, "Is that a statue of me?" Suddenly a shout echoes, "Li Yun Xiao, you are really a gutsy one. Answer the question. How many types of methods to refine an ordinary Xian weapon are there?" says the teacher. Yun Xiao looks at the teacher's body and thinks, "Nice body, good-looking with long hairs. If she wears a set of armor, then add the frost of grief that would make her another red lotus empress in the flesh." Frost of grief is the weapon she is holding in her hand or maybe legs. What is Yun Xiao even imagining? He is a true man of culture. Moving on, the teacher says, "Hurry up and answer the question. How many types of ordinary refining methods are there?" Yun Xiao thinks, what kind of childish question to be asked from a 9th rank refiner, the pinnacle of martial world. Yun Xiao ignoringly replied that there are 48 types of methods. The teacher was left in shock, and the whole class erupted into laughter. A boy stood up and, pointing towards the textbook, says, "Trash, have you read the book? There are clearly only 36 types in Master Yongdi's textbook." Yun Xiao nonchalantly replied, "Yongdi. That brat, did he dare to forget the 12 methods that Gu Feiyang had devised?" The teacher stood even more shocked, and the class again burst into laughter, saying, "How could Master Yongdi make such a mistake? He was a student of martial sovereign Gu Feiyang." Suddenly, with a palm strike to the table, the teacher ordered the class to be silent. She said that martial sovereign Gu Feiyang was not only the 3rd-ranked warrior on the Tianwu continent, he was a top-notch 9th realm refiner. And he also designed 12 other refining methods that Master Yongdi did not include in the textbook because they are impossible for ordinary people to understand. This fact left the whole class in shock. The teacher thought that Yun Xiao is a trash in martial arts because his meridians are not open. But if trained to be a refiner, he will be much more valuable than a martial warrior. Thinking this, she tried to test him further and asked, "Tell me, why do you need to add sky crystal sand during refining? If you can answer this, you won't need to attend my class anymore." That question was like asking why 1 + 1 is 2. But Yun Xiao, unfazed with the problem, answered, "The crystal sand is not required. However, this material is required because the average refiner is not able to precisely fuse the other materials with it." Then let me ask you, when red copper fuses with shining gold, how do you get rid of the effects of the sky crystal sand? Says the teacher. Just treat the sky crystal sand as an impurity, then use what you have to get rid of it. Yun Xiao replies, This leaves the teacher in shock. "No wonder I kept failing," she said to herself. Actually, this was a problem that even the teacher was unable to solve for a long time. Getting an answer to a problem which has been troubling her for a long time, she leaves the classroom in a hurry, leaving the students to study on their own. This scene left the other students to question whether the teacher was asking a question or asking for advice on her problem. Yunxiao also leaves the classroom enjoying the fact that he won't need to attend the class anymore. The students started to question, is Yunxiao a prodigy in alchemy? Jealous of this, a student said the talent requirement for a refiner is even greater than that of a martial artist. Can a trash that can't open even a single meridian really walk the path of an alchemist? Joining in the other students also started to trash-talk Yunxiao, laughing at him. While Yunxiao by now was far away from these idiots, Yunxiao left the academy grounds, heading into a bustling street thinking, so this is the capital of the Tianshui nation? What a coincidence that my idiot of a disciple Yongdi is the best refiner in this country. Probably this statue was made by Yongdi. At least he knows how to show respect. Sadly, my body is too weak. Not even a single meridian is opened. This body is truly trash among the trash. Anyhow, in my past life, I was ranked 3rd in the martial world. All I need to do is find a way to fix this body. If all goes well, it will only take a few years for me to regain all my strength. Well, let's find Yongdi first, and after that I can quickly recover my strength by myself. Roaming the streets, Yunxiao finally reaches his destination, the Alchemy Tower of Tianshui Nation. With the determination to become even stronger through the experience of his previous life, Yunxiao, approaching the Alchemy Tower, sets his heart to a single goal. In this life, I will reach the pinnacle of this world. With his goal in mind, Yunxiao enters the Alchemy Tower. Lu Yao, the receptionist, greeted Yunxiao warmly as he entered. She was responsible for assisting visitors to the guild. "Do you need any help, sir?" she asked politely. "I'm looking for Yongdi," Yunxiao replied. "Is he still here?" Lu Yao's expression changed as she asked in shock, "Do you mean the previous guild master, Yongdi?" Yunxiao, confused, furrowed his brow. "The previous guild master? Does that mean he's no longer here?" Lu Yao nodded. "Master Yongdi was the guild master 20 years ago." Yunxiao's mind began to race. "This is troublesome. I originally wanted him to brew me some pills to help me break through. Now, I'll have to unclog the hidden meridians in my body myself." He thought back to his past. The martial world once knew me, Gu Feiyang, as a prodigy in both martial arts and alchemy. I was a 9th-ranked legendary alchemist and one of the 7 elders of the Alchemist Guild's Supreme Branch. Now, I'm nothing but trash. My meridians are clogged, and this body is already 15 years old. If I don't open them soon, it will be even harder to regain my strength in the future. Finally, Yunxiao sighed and said to Lu Yao, "How about this? I'll write a recipe. See if you can help me gather the materials." Lu Yao, eager to assist, handed Yunxiao a pen and paper. He began to write the recipe, but before he could finish, a voice called out from the distance. "Lu Yao, who are you talking to? Hurry up. Master Liang is looking for you." It was Jaron, a first-tier alchemist at the guild. As a first-tier alchemist, Jaron was at the very beginning of his career, with level 9 being the highest rank. Lu Yao took the recipe from Yunxiao, agreeing to go see Master Liang after helping him. But before she could leave, Jaron snatched the recipe from her hand, looked at it, and immediately crushed the paper. "What kind of lousy recipe is this?" he sneered, tossing the crumpled paper aside. Yunxiao's anger flared. "Any document I write is a priceless treasure. How dare this idiot throw it away like a piece of waste paper?" Jaron ordered Lu Yao to go to Master Liang immediately. Out of fear of Jaron, she bowed and accepted the command. Leaving to find Master Liang, Yun Xiao, still furious, spoke up. "You're Jaron, right? Got promoted this week?" Jaron, with a smug grin, replied, "As everyone knows, I was promoted 5 days ago. Since you know who I am, you should refer to me as Master." Yun Xiao raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure you were promoted to an alchemist? Your fingers have turned a dark gray and started to peel. Probably from exposure to a blood flame stone that you used to enhance your alchemical fusion abilities before the exam. The smell of blood orchids on your body is to counteract the side effects of the stone." Jaron was taken aback, disbelief evident on his face. "How does he know?" "That's nonsense," Jaron muttered, trying to walk away, but Yun Xiao called out, "Actually, the blood flame stone has a powerful side effect. I'm sure the acupoints at your forehead, the back of your neck, and your back are causing discomfort around noon. What a waste of a talented alchemist. If you want to preserve your life, you'll need to destroy your dantian." Jaron's face drained of color as he began to shiver in fear. "Stop scaring me," he stammered. Yun Xiao dismissed him with a wave. "Forget it then. I was about to teach you the cure. But if you're too scared..." Jaron quickly grabbed Yun Xiao's arm, pleading, "Tell me the cure." However, seeing Yun Xiao's furious expression, he immediately backed off, realizing his position. He bowed low before Yun Xiao, begging for the cure. The onlookers were stunned by the sight, but Yun Xiao remained unfazed. "Hey, where's my list of materials?" Yun Xiao asked nonchalantly. Jaron, eager to avoid further conflict, hurried to pick up the discarded paper and handed it to Yun Xiao. Without a second thought, Yun Xiao crushed the paper, throwing it back at Jaron. "I want 10 batches of every item on this list. Bring everything to the academy once you've gathered it." With that, Yun Xiao turned and walked away, leaving Jaron standing there, stunned and speechless. After Yun Xiao left, Jaron fumed in anger. "This kid is neither a martial artist nor an alchemist. Yet why do I feel this shiver of fear when I'm near him?" He clenched his fists, vowing, "I'll let him run wild for a few more days. Once I get the solution, I'll tear him to pieces." Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Lu Yao, who was speaking with Master Liang, a second-tier alchemist. He looked at her with concern. "You said a young man asked you to find spirit crane roots and white phoenix dragon lotus?" Lu Yao nodded in affirmation. Master Liang furrowed his brow. "What else was on the list?" Lu Yao thought for a moment and then replied, "Ink feather ghost flower, nether fruit, vacuum nectar, Shiva flower, and fairy bud." Master Liang's eyes widened in shock. Did the boy leave a name, contact information, or anything? Lu Yao shook her head. "No, he didn't. Is something wrong, Master Liang?" Master Liang's expression darkened. "There are several herbs on this list that even I haven't heard of, but when combined, they give me the impression that this will create a very powerful potion. If the boy comes back, make sure to let me know immediately." The scene shifted again to Yun Xiao. He was walking back to the academy deep in thought. Those materials are relatively difficult for Jaron to find. I can't trust him completely. I need to find another way. He paused, then thought, let's see what my storage ring has. Yun Xiao pulled out a ring from his pocket and slid it onto his finger. This ring had a large inner space to store things. As he searched through it, he found mostly shady objects. Finally, he came across an old sword. This black, iron-heavy sword is the only thing of any use. He examined it. It weighs 32 caddies and 7 tails. So heavy, I really miss my Star Slayer sword. I wonder where it is now. He threw the sword over his shoulder with a sigh. Before I open the 7 chakras, I'll use this. Once I've condensed my primordial chi, I'll craft myself a proper weapon. As he reached the gate of the academy, a hand lunged toward him, attempting to grab his sword. Yun Xiao swiftly dodged the attack. He turned to see 2 of his classmates, Snakeface and Monkey Man. His expression darkened with anger. Just then, 2 of his other friends, Han and Chun, appeared to protect him. They shouted, demanding to know what Snakeface and Monkey Man were doing. But Snakeface, ignoring their words, moved forward to attack. Han stepped up to face him head-on. The two exchanged powerful blows, forcing each other to take a step back. Chun, supporting Han, asked, "When did you open 4 of your chakras?" Bai dismissively replied, "It's just 4. Suddenly, Monkey Man lunged at Yun Xiao. With 5 of his chakras open, he launched a punch. Han countered, but Monkey Man's overwhelming strength shattered Han's bones, sending him flying back. Chun rushed to support him. Monkey Man sneered, his face twisted in a killing expression. This is the gap between someone who has opened 5 chakras and someone with just 4. At that moment, a girl appeared, standing in front of Han. "I'd like to see which of you is going to bully Yun Xiao," she said confidently. It was Ru Xue, the princess of Tianshui Kingdom and one of Yun Xiao's classmates. Upon seeing her, Snakeface and Monkey Man hesitated and then backed off, turning to leave. But before they could slip away, Yun Xiao's voice rang out. "You think you can leave after hitting my friends?" Snakeface, now seething with anger, shot back, "Do you have a problem? You piece of—" Yun Xiao, unfazed, replied calmly, "I don't have a problem. But I'd like to see the gap between someone who has 5 chakras open and someone who has none. Let's see how big that gap really is." The princess, concerned for Yun Xiao's safety, tried to intervene, but Snakeface smirked and said, "Why don't we try the 4 chakras first?" He rushed to attack Yun Xiao. His friend shouted his name in concern, and the princess closed her eyes, bracing for the worst. Then a loud bam echoed across the yard. Everyone froze, their jaws dropping as they looked at the scene. Snakeface was writhing in pain on the ground, clutching himself in agony from a single attack. Yun Xiao had delivered a precise strike to Snakeface's most vulnerable spot, making him roll in pain. Monkey Man, seeing his friend writhing in pain, fumed with anger. With a furious roar, he unleashed the power of his 5 open chakras and lunged at Yun Xiao, swinging a barrage of punches. Han and Chen shouted warnings, but Yun Xiao remained composed. With an almost casual motion, he raised his heavy black iron sword in front of him. The impact was immediate and brutal. Monkeyman's fist slammed into the sharp edge of the blade, splitting his skin and drawing a gush of blood. He cried out in agony, clutching his mangled hand. Before he could recover, Yun Xiao delivered a swift, devastating kick to his groin. The sheer force of the attack caused Monkey Man to collapse next to Snakeface, unconscious from the pain. The onlookers were stunned into silence. What they had just witnessed defied their understanding of combat. Yun Xiao, still calm, dragged his sword across the ground as he approached the fallen Monkey Man. His cold voice echoed through the courtyard. "Attacking my friends comes with grave consequences." Monkey Man, regaining consciousness and realizing the severity of the situation, began to beg for mercy. But Yun Xiao gave him no chance to plead further. With a single kick, he sent both Monkey Man and Snakeface hurtling into a nearby wall. The force of their collision cracked the wall, and Monkey Man, now trembling, had even wet himself in fear. Chun, still in shock, asked Yun Xiao hesitantly, "Have you unclogged your meridians? Have you opened your chakras?" Yun Xiao shook his head, denying it. If only it were that easy. The princess stepped forward, concern etched on her face. "Yun Xiao, both the families of Snakeface and Monkey Man have long been at odds with your Li family. I'm afraid they'll use this incident against you." Yun Xiao responded with an amused smile. He plunged the sword into the ground between Monkeyman's legs and spoke in a chilling tone. "If they dare to say anything about this, I'll destroy their family jewels, one at a time." The audacity of his words left everyone speechless. With that, Yun Xiao turned and walked toward his dorm. The princess, embarrassed by his remark, muttered, "How vulgar." She then turned to Han and Chun, concern still evident in her voice. Outsiders wouldn't dare to attack someone within the academy. But if other students were to act, the academy might turn a blind eye. Han and Chin exchanged worried glances. Are you saying Lon Fay might make a move? Han asked. The princess nodded solemnly. Yes, Lon Fay has already opened 7 chakras and is close to breaking through to martial warrior status. If he decides to target Yun Xiao, it will be a dangerous situation. The trio fell silent, their worry growing. The scene shifted to Yun Xiao, who had returned to his dorm room. Sitting cross-legged, he prepared himself to practice the tyrant body tempering technique. His mind was calm, focused solely on the steps needed to rebuild his strength. Despite the challenges ahead, there was a quiet determination in his eyes, reminder of the prodigy he once was and the master he was destined to become again. The Qianwu continent once held a grand martial conference to rank the 10 strongest martial artists, an event that cemented their legacy as the pinnacle of martial prowess. These individuals were given the honorific titled martial sovereigns. Among them, the strongest bore the title Tyrant Martial Sovereign, a man named A.O. Chongkong. His signature technique, the Tyrant Body Tempering Technique, was renowned throughout the martial world. It was said to be a refining method that could conquer everything beneath the heavens. By sheer chance, Gu Feiyang, Yun Xiao's previous self, had acquired this legendary cultivation technique. However, he had died before he could practice it. Now, in this new life, Yun Xiao had decided to give it another shot. Sitting in an uncomfortable position, Yun Xiao attempted to practice the technique. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead as his body trembled from the strain. His muscles burned, and his bones creaked under the pressure. Breathing heavily, he muttered to himself, I gained this cultivation method in my previous life, but I never had the chance to practice it. This is my perfect opportunity to start. Moments later, his body gave out, and he collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth as he struggled to push himself upright. Why is this technique so difficult? I feel like my body is being split apart, he thought, pain etched across his face. No wonder A.O. Chongkong was that strong. Just starting this technique is already excruciating. But even if I can't open my chakras, cultivating this alone will eventually elevate me to the same level as the martial sovereigns. With renewed determination, Yun Xiao pushed himself off the ground. He clenched his fists, wiping the blood from his mouth. At the very least, I was ranked 3rd among the 10 martial sovereigns in my past life, he muttered, fire igniting in his eyes. I have the talent, courage, and determination to surpass even A.O. Chongkong. He resumed his practice, but the technique's intensity surged, forcing him to roll backward and crash into the wall. The impact sent more blood spilling from his lips. Cradling his head in one hand, he gritted his teeth and growled, if that tyrant bastard could do it, I'll surpass him. With unyielding resolve, he began to practice again, despite his body screaming in protest. The next morning, Yun Xiao, still aching but resolute, made his way to the gravity training hall, intent on mastering the first stage of the technique. Entering the hall, he approached the teleportation array, designed to transport students into chambers with varying levels of gravity. He placed a spirit stone into the array, and with a flash of light and a soft whoosh, he was teleported into the 10-fold gravity training zone. The moment he arrived, a crushing pressure fell upon him, making it hard to breathe. Yun Xiao clenched his jaw as he adjusted to the oppressive weight. A mere 10-fold gravity put such a heavy burden on my body, he thought. Good thing I was mentally prepared for this. Looking around, he noticed a large group of students waiting in the common area for a training chamber to become available. Yun Xiao activated his divine sense, quickly scanning the chambers. He identified that room 13 would soon be vacant and immediately headed in that direction. Just as he reached the door, it swung open and a student exited. The onlookers stared in disbelief, whispering among themselves, "What incredible luck," one murmured. He got a room the moment he arrived. Yun Xiao paid no attention to the chatter and moved to enter the chamber. However, before he could step inside, a hand blocked his path. A tall figure stood before him, smirking. "I'm a martial apprentice with 7 chakras open," the young man declared arrogantly. "Little brother, you should let me have this room." Yun Xiao's expression turned cold and sharp, his voice carrying an undeniable authority. "Piss off," he said flatly. The martial apprentice's face darkened with anger. "A trash like you with no chakras open dares talk to me like this? Today, I'll teach you the rules a newbie like you should follow." He dropped into a fighting stance, his aura flaring in challenge. Yun Xiao's eyes narrowed, and an eerie calm settled over him. The students watching held their breath, waiting to see how this clash would unfold. Yun Xiao ignored the challenger's arrogant words and calmly proceeded to walk into the chamber. His indifference only fueled the other man's anger further. With a burst of energy, the martial apprentice leapt into the air, intending to attack Yun Xiao from above with his full strength. However, Yun Xiao, ever composed, turned swiftly. In an instant, a faint but powerful dragon-like aura surged behind him. The opponent froze momentarily, startled by the unexpected pressure. Yun Xiao smirked, his movements fluid and deliberate as he grabbed the attacker's arm midair and struck him with a shoulder slam. The force sent the challenger stumbling backward, his expression contorted in anger as he struggled to regain balance. Before the situation could escalate further, a calm voice rang out, breaking the tension. "Senior Yu," the voice addressed, drawing everyone's attention. The speaker was revealed to be a girl, Luolan. Her sudden appearance caused a ripple among the onlookers. Senior Yu hesitated, his bravado fading slightly. "Luolan, give me 5 more minutes," he said, his voice faltering. "I'll get this room for you." Luolan shook her head and replied firmly, "Just leave it." He got the room first. Yun Xiao, who had remained silent, turned his gaze toward Luolan. His expression flickered briefly with recognition. A memory surged to the forefront of his mind. One he had buried deep. It was of the time he had once proposed to Luolan. In the memory, Luolan had coldly rejected him, walking away without hesitation. "My husband must be a strong martial artist," she had said, her tone unwavering. "Even if you come from a renowned background, you are still trash in the martial arts world. If you can defeat me one day, I might consider it." The scene shifted back to the present, where Luolan, her tone laced with disdain, remarked, "I didn't think you'd start training a technique when you can't even strengthen yourself. But you will never beat me. The gap between us will only grow wider." Yun Xiao, unfazed by her words, turned his back on her. His voice was calm and dismissive as he stepped into the chamber. "If there's nothing else, I'm going to train." The door closed behind him with a loud thud, leaving Luolan and the onlookers outside. Luolan sighed and glanced at Senior Yu. "If you had practiced your technique properly, you wouldn't have lost to Yun Xiao," she said pointedly before turning to leave. Her words sparked a wave of quiet laughter among the bystanders, further humiliating Senior Yu, whose face flushed red with anger. Inside the chamber, Yun Xiao surveyed his surroundings. The room was bare except for 2 training statues forged from black iron. Both statues were covered in scratches and dents, evidence of countless students using them over the years. Yun Xiao ran his hand across the surface of one statue and muttered to himself, "These statues must be centuries old." Shrugging off his coat, he placed it neatly to the side. His expression grew serious as he thought to himself, "It'll take me at least 10 years to return to the 9th realm. I can't waste any time." I need to push forward immediately. He positioned himself in front of one of the statues, ready to test his current strength. Gathering his focus, Yun Xiao performed the first movement of the tyrant body tempering technique, channeling all his energy into a single, decisive punch aimed at the iron figure. The impact echoed through the chamber, marking the start of his rigorous training. The scene shifts, showing Yun Xiao sitting within the tenfold gravity training chamber. His body was bruised, his clothes tattered, and sweat drenched his form. Yet, his eyes gleamed with determination. He muttered to himself, under tenfold gravity, the practice efficiency of the first style of the tyrant body tempering technique has truly multiplied. Struggling to his feet, Yun Xiao wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and continued, in 3 days, I'll be able to match the physical strength of a martial apprentice. When that happens, I'll have at least a 60% chance to successfully unclog my meridians. Without hesitation, he resumed his rigorous practice. 3 days later, the door to the training chamber creaked open. Yun Xiao staggered out, his body covered in blood, his breathing labored, and his clothing shredded to near rags. The bystanders outside were stunned into silence as they beheld his battered yet determined figure. One of them, unable to contain his curiosity, peeked into the chamber Yun Xiao had just vacated. His shocked voice broke the tense atmosphere. The statues, they're shattered. This exclamation drew the attention of the other students. When they rushed to look inside, their jaws dropped. The ancient black iron statues, which had stood unbroken for centuries, were reduced to piles of rubble. Yun Xiao's practice had utterly destroyed them. The scene shifted to show Yun Xiao after he had cleaned himself up. His body, transformed by the tyrant body tempering technique, now radiated a subtle but palpable strength. Admiring his progress, Yun Xiao thought to himself, this technique is indeed the #1 body tempering method in the world. As long as I can obtain a few low-level pills, my cultivation speed will increase dramatically. Sitting down in a meditative posture, Yun Xiao began to regulate his breathing and channel his energy. Suddenly, he sensed movement behind him. Without turning his head, he shot out a hand and caught an incoming fist. Twisting the arm in a fluid motion, Yun Xiao flipped the attacker over, slamming them face-first into the ground. The groaning figure turned out to be Han, one of Yun Xiao's friends. Struggling to his feet while clutching his wrist, Han grimaced, "It's not broken, is it?" Yun Xiao smirked and replied casually, "You can't blame me for reacting. You're the one who snuck up on me?" Dusting himself off, Han stepped closer to Yun Xiao, his expression turning serious. "Yun Xiao, you might be in trouble," he warned. "Lon Fay has disappeared over the past few days. I heard he's cultivating in seclusion to break into the first origin realm." Yun Xiao's brow furrowed slightly at the name, but his tone remained calm. "Lon Fay, the boss of Snakeface and Monkey Man?" Han nodded emphatically, his face full of concern. "Yes, and he might be coming for revenge. Do you understand what it means to reach the origin realm? It means he's condensed his yang qi and broken into the ranks of a true martial warrior. There's a massive gap between us apprentices and someone at his level." Yun Xiao dismissed Han's concerns with a nonchalant wave. His expression grew resolute. "That's not important right now. I need you to do something for me." Han raised an eyebrow, surprised by Yun Xiao's calm demeanor. What could be more important than preparing for Lon Fay? Yun Xiao's tone turned lighthearted, but his eyes gleamed mischievously. "Han, lend me all your money." Reluctantly, Han handed over a pouch of coins. "You're going to bleed me dry, Yun Xiao," he complained half-heartedly as he turned to leave. Before he could take more than a step, a loud bang echoed through the room. The door was kicked open with such force that it sent Han flying across the room. He landed near Yun Xiao's feet unconscious. A clear imprint of a boot was visible on his chest. Moments later, another figure was sent tumbling into the room. Chin crashed to the ground beside Han, equally unconscious, with blood trickling from his mouth and a tooth lying nearby. Stepping into the room was Lon Fay, his aura surging with an oppressive intensity. His eyes burned with rage as he strode toward Yunxiao. "You damn trash," he bellowed. "How dare you touch my men? Today, I'll cripple you completely." Lon Fay's words hung in the air like a death sentence, and his power surged around him, a vivid display of his newly condensed yang qi. Yunxiao, however, remained calm, his expression unyielding as he prepared to face the enraged martial warrior. Yunxiao bent down to check on Han and Chun, carefully assessing their injuries. After confirming that neither of them was in a life-threatening condition, he rose to his feet, his expression cold and unyielding. Turning his gaze toward Lon Fay, he finally broke his silence. "Do you really think you're special, just because you can glow a little?" Yunxiao's voice carried a mocking tone as he stepped forward, his movements deliberate and firm. "You think you can cripple me? It's been a long time since I've heard such an arrogant statement." Lon Fay felt an inexplicable sense of unease as Yunxiao approached. The pressure radiating from Yunxiao was palpable, and for the first time, Lon Fay hesitated. Out of fear, he quickly drew his sword and lunged forward, choosing to strike first. Yunxiao, unfazed, drew his own sword in response. The two swords clashed with a deafening sound, sending a shower of sparks flying through the air. The force of the impact was immense, pushing Yunxiao back and leaving a deep cut on his blade, a testament to the strength behind Lon Fay's strike. Lon Fay and the bystanders were shocked. How was it possible for Yunxiao, someone without even a single chakra opened, to withstand such a powerful blow? Yunxiao, however, remained calm. He let out a low laugh, his confidence unwavering. Pointing his sword at Lon Fay, he taunted, "Come, let me give you some pointers." This remark made Lon Fay snap. Furious, he charged at Yunxiao again, putting all his strength into his attack. But Yunxiao's movements were precise and swift. With a single, well-timed maneuver, he disarmed Lon Fay, sending his sword flying across the room. Lon Fay stood frozen, his mind struggling to comprehend what had just happened. Before Lon Fay could recover, Yunxiao delivered a powerful kick to his face, sending him crashing into the wall. Blood dripped from Lon Fay's nose as he slumped to the ground in a daze. Suddenly, the sound of metal striking the ground echoed. Yunxiao had driven his sword into the floor, right between Lon Fay's legs. Lon Fay's face turned pale as the reality of the situation sank in. Panic replaced his anger, and his voice trembled with a mix of fear and desperation. "You dare touch me," he spat out, trying to sound threatening despite his situation. Yunxiao, unmoved by the empty threat, pressed the tip of his sword slightly closer to Lon Fay's groin. The gesture was enough to shatter whatever composure Lon Fay had left. His attitude shifted in an instant. "Please, spare me. I was wrong," he begged, his voice cracking. The scene left the onlookers stunned. Even Lon Fay's subordinates, who had been silently watching, instinctively shielded their groins as if they, too, could feel the pain. Yunxiao remained silent for a moment, his cold gaze locked on Lon Fay. Then, with a sly grin on his face, the air around him heavy with dominance. "If you want to keep your little bird intact, hand over some money," Yunxiao said, his voice dripping with mockery. Lon Fay, trembling with fear, quickly removed his spatial ring and handed it to Yunxiao without hesitation. Yunxiao turned his gaze toward Lon Fay's underlings, his sword casually pointing in their direction. "You lot," he said, "if you want to walk out of here in one piece, you'd better follow his example." The underlings, terrified, scrambled to comply. In no time, a pile of valuable items formed at Yunxiao's feet, rings, pendants, and other treasures. Yunxiao examined the haul, his eyes catching on a jade pendant hanging around Lon Fay's waist. With a single fluid motion of his sword, he severed the pendant's string and caught it in his hand. "This pendant is quite nice," Yunxiao said, inspecting it. "I'll be taking it." Lon Fay's eyes widened in panic as he fell to his knees. "No, please, you can take anything else, but not that pendant. It's been passed down in my family for generations. Only the core members of the Lon family are allowed to wear it. If I lose it, my family will skin me alive." Yunxiao, raised an eyebrow, his sword lazily pointing at one of Lon Fay's underlings. "I could return it," he said, his tone cold and calculating. "But in exchange, I'll make your subordinates end up like those two." He gestured towards Monkey Man and Snakeface. Lon Fay's underlings, frozen in fear, looked toward their leader with pleading eyes. Lon Fay clenched his fists, torn between his loyalty to his family and the lives of his men. After a long moment, he gritted his teeth and spoke. "This jade pendant is extremely important to me," he said, his voice shaking. "But when compared to my brothers, it's nothing." The declaration left his underlings visibly moved, their eyes filled with gratitude and emotion. Lon Fay, regaining his composure, gave a sharp command. "Let's go." Without sparing another glance at Yun Xiao, he turned and led his group away, his dignity in tatters. Yun Xiao watched them leave, his eyes narrowing as he examined the pendant in his hand. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "It really is the five-colored divine stone," he muttered. Slipping the pendant into his pocket, he spoke aloud, his voice cutting through the silence. "You've been watching long enough. It's about time you showed yourself." A shadow suddenly leaped from the roof, landing gracefully behind Yun Xiao. The figure was Jaron, his expression a mix of annoyance and disbelief. He had witnessed everything that had just transpired, but he couldn't wrap his mind around it. "I saw it all," Jaron thought to himself, "but I still can't figure out how Yun Xiao defeated Lon Fay. I came here planning to restrain him and force him to tell me the cure. But now, I don't even have the confidence to fight him, even with my cultivation at mid-tier warrior level." Yun Xiao turned to face Jaron, his eyes sharp. He asked coldly, "Did you gather everything I asked for?" Jaron, suppressing his irritation, handed Yun Xiao a list. "I've only managed to gather 6 batches, he said defensively. "Some of the herbs you want are nearly impossible to find." 6 batches, Yun Xiao repeated, his tone neutral. "Fine, hand them over. But before anything else, heal them first." He nodded toward Han and Chun, who still lay unconscious nearby. Jaron's face twisted in anger. "Who do you think you are? Do you think you can order me around like this?" Yun Xiao didn't flinch. "If you don't like it, you can leave," he replied curtly. His tone made it clear that he wouldn't entertain any further complaints. Jaron's frustration boiled under the surface. "I'm a rank 1 alchemist with a prestigious reputation," he thought bitterly. How did it come to this? Taking orders from a mere kid? But he knew he had no choice. Reluctantly, he fed Han and Chun healing pills, ensuring they were stabilized. "I'm done," Jaron said, straightening up. His eyes locked on Yun Xiao with a mix of anger and desperation. "Now, it's about time you told me the cure." Yun Xiao wrote something down on a piece of paper, folded it neatly, and casually tossed it toward Jaron. The force behind the throw made the paper whistle through the air, and Jaron caught it with both hands, his palms stinging slightly from the impact. His eyes narrowed in shock as he thought, "This brat, just how strong is he?" Unfolding the paper, Jaron scanned its contents, his expression gradually shifting from suspicion to astonishment. His thoughts raced as he realized the value of what he held. "This prescription, it's incredible." Yun Xiao wasn't lying. "It's completely reliable." With reverence, Jaron carefully slipped the prescription into his pocket and turned to leave. "Now that I've received what I was promised, we're even," he said flatly. Yun Xiao's voice, calm but cutting, stopped Jaron in his tracks. "This prescription will remove the toxins of both the blood flame stone and the blood orchids from your body without causing any side effects. However, when the toxins were corroding your body, didn't you notice your soul power weakening every time you practiced alchemy? Didn't it feel as though your soul power was deteriorating?" Jaron's heart sank as he listened. Yun Xiao's words struck a nerve, and panic flickered across his face. Yun Xiao continued, his tone clinical yet unyielding. "The deterioration of your soul power makes cultivation hundreds of times harder. If left unchecked, there's little hope for you to recover your rank 1 alchemist status, let alone advance to rank 2. Jaron turned sharply, flustered. "What are you saying? What do you mean by this?" he demanded. Yun Xiao met his gaze with a cold, confident expression. I know a way to restore your soul power and make you a true rank 1 alchemist within 5 days. Jaron blinked, stunned. 5 days? You must be joking. Even if my soul power hadn't deteriorated, breaking through to rank 1 in such a short time is impossible. Yunxiao's eyes narrowed. Who do you think you are? Do you think I would waste my time lying to you? Jaron hesitated, swallowing his indignation. What do you want in return for your help? He asked cautiously. Yunxiao smirked, his tone bold and unyielding. Be my servant. Jaron's face flushed with anger. A servant? You're just a kid, and you expect me, a rank 1 alchemist, to be your servant? Absolutely not. Yunxiao didn't flinch. Do you honestly believe you're qualified to be my servant? His voice was laced with disdain. You'll serve me for 5 days. Once the 5 days are up, you'll scram. Jaron opened his mouth to protest, but before he could speak, Yunxiao unleashed his soul pressure. The invisible force weighed down on Jaron, driving him to his knees. Cold sweat dripped down his face as his body trembled under the immense pressure. Yunxiao's gaze was icy and domineering. I'll give you 3 breaths to decide. Do you accept my offer or not? Jaron's mind raced. This soul pressure, it far surpasses mine. If I accept, there's a chance I could rise to the top. If I don't, I might regret it for the rest of my life. Gritting his teeth, he muttered, I accept. The pressure vanished instantly. Yunxiao nodded approvingly. Not bad. You were decisive. You'll come to realize how lucky you are to have made the right choice. He tossed another piece of paper toward Jaron, who caught it with shaky hands. Follow the instructions on that paper. If you can't advance to rank 1 within 5 days, it means you lack the aptitude and aren't qualified to be my servant. Jaron unfolded the paper, his eyes widening in disbelief. Soul cultivation arts, he whispered, his voice trembling. This is really a soul cultivation technique. Yunxiao glanced at him indifferently. It's just a low-level soul cultivation technique, but it's enough for you to fully recover and break through within 5 days. If you behave well, I won't be stingy with rewards in the future. Turning away, Yunxiao added nonchalantly, You may leave. I'll find you at the Alchemist Association. If I need anything. Jaron stood frozen for a moment before bowing deeply out of respect. Without another word, he left the academy, his mind racing. The most important aspect of an alchemist is their soul power, he thought, his footsteps quickening. Ordinary alchemists can only increase it at an excruciatingly slow pace through constant crafting. But this soul cultivation technique, it directly refines soul power. Now, I, Jaron, have such a precious technique in my possession. He clenched the paper tightly in his hands, his thoughts turbulent. Yunxiao handed me something so priceless, as if it were a trivial item he found on the street. Not even the imperial palace would be this generous. With this technique, even serving him as a slave for years wouldn't be a loss. As he approached the towering alchemy tower, Jaron's thoughts lingered on Yunxiao. Just who is this young Master Yun? The more I think about it, the more unfathomable he becomes. After rebirth, my soul power is not even as good as that of an ordinary rank 1 alchemist. Just now, I used the soul-stealing secret method to instantly shock Jaron. This resulted in me losing a significant portion of my remaining soul power. Yunxiao thinks, sitting cross-legged, his eyes slightly closed. A golden text emerged in his mind, its symbols resembling tadpoles, flashing briefly before vanishing into the sea of consciousness. Despite his efforts, he couldn't make the text condense on his spiritual platform. Although the awakening of his soul meant he was destined to become powerful, Li Yunxiao's goal extended far beyond this. He aimed to surpass his previous life and break into the legendary realm. His greatest reliance wasn't just the memories of his past life or the tyrant body refining art, but also the soul-refining technique he had discovered in the Tiandang Mountains before his death, the great evolution divine art. This method of refining the soul was unheard of, and its recorded techniques exceeded his imagination. He believed that his ability to regenerate his soul was tied to this mysterious art. When his memories resurfaced, the words of this technique echoed in his mind. In the Tianwu continent, cultivation was divided into two main paths: martial arts cultivation and alchemy cultivation. Martial artists specialized in qi cultivation, with a small number focusing on body refinement, while alchemists specialized in the cultivation of the soul. These three paths corresponded to the body, qi, and soul of a person. While mastery of any one path could dominate the continent, the most powerful figures combined at least two. In his previous life, Yunxiao had reached the Nine Heavens realm, also known as the Martial Sovereign level, in two of the three paths, but had remained stuck at its peak. It was then that he realized his physical strength was holding him back. To address this, he had obtained the tyrant body refining art. Only by achieving peak levels in body, qi, and soul could one attempt to reach the legendary 10 Directions realm. Using the Great Evolution Divine Art, I'll elevate my soul power to the 9th level. With the tyrant body refining art, I'll combine all three paths to ascend to the 10 Directions Divine realm and become invincible. A golden gleam flickered in his eyes, penetrating through layers of space as if he could see the edge of the infinite void. With a 5-colored divine space stone in hand, he planned to refine 13 divine needles, enough to stimulate his body's potential and elevate his chakras. He immediately began practicing the Great Evolution Divine Art. His damaged soul power recovered rapidly, reaching the peak level of a magic apprentice. Although he fell short of the first-rank alchemist, it was sufficient to craft divine needles and prepare the potions needed. Li Yunxiao entered the practice room, a chamber made of durable diamond rock. He took out the purple gold sand provided by Jaron and ground it into dust, drawing a pentagram formation on the ground. The 5-colored divine space stone shattered under the power of his black sword, and his soul power wrapped the fragments within the formation. With meticulous control, he guided the particles, using his experience from his past life to refine the material. Despite his current level being that of a high-level apprentice, his expertise allowed him to achieve results comparable to a rank 1 alchemist. As the 5-colored divine space stone condensed, bursts of light emanated, purifying itself as it transformed. 13 needles, gleaming with divine light, materialized and fell into his hands. Next, he began preparing the potion for cleansing the meridians and washing the marrow. Using monster blood and various materials, he orchestrated a complex series of chemical reactions, his soul power monitoring every step. After several bursts and violent reactions, he finally produced a dark green liquid. Highly toxic yet perfectly balanced. Yunxiao immersed the needles in the potion and, controlling them with his soul power, inserted them into his body to unclog his meridian points. A dense mist enveloped the room as his body absorbed the immense medicinal power. The needles protected his acupuncture points while channeling the potion's energy. As the balance of energy tipped, the needles ejected from his body, causing the potion to evaporate in an explosive mist. Emerging from the training room, Li Yunxiao sighed. Only 5 chakras opened. What a pity! Most warriors would have considered this an incredible feat, but for him, it was merely a step forward. He cleaned himself and joined Han and Chun, who expressed anger over Lon Fay's recent actions. Despite their concerns about retaliation, especially from Lon Xen, Lon Fay's powerful half-brother, who was a peak martial warrior on the verge of breaking through to martial master, Li Yunxiao remained confident. If Lon Xen doesn't come for me, I'll go to him, Li Yunxiao said with a smirk, determination flashing in his eyes. His ambitions were clear: to claim the 5-colored divine stone. In a secluded building within the academy, Lon Fay roared angrily at his uncle Wong Fong. "Uncle, I can't let this go. I must get back at him." Wong Feng's expression darkened as he snapped, "Shut up, you fool! You nearly caused a disaster." If Lon Xen wasn't in seclusion, your mother's years of hard work would have been ruined. Lon Fay froze, his arrogance momentarily replaced by fear. How could it be that serious? I just asked Brother Xien to teach that waste a lesson and help me vent my anger. His uncle sneered, his eyes glinting with disdain, and said that so-called waste from the Li family is insignificant. Your real enemy is Lon Xen. Losing the family's direct lineage token has put you in a dangerous position. If Lon Xen finds out, the family will reprimand you at best, but at worst, you'll lose your status as a direct descendant and be relegated to a collateral branch. Lon Fay's face turned pale. Panic replaced his earlier bravado. Uncle, what should I do? You must help me. Wong Feng's expression softened slightly, though his voice remained firm. Don't worry. You are my sister's son. I'll naturally help you. But as a teacher at the academy, I cannot act directly against students without justification. The consequences would be severe. Fortunately, the junior class's annual assessment is in 7 days. If that boy hasn't opened his chakra by then, I'll ensure he's expelled under the academy's rules. Once he's out, we can deal with him before he returns to the Li family. We'll retrieve the keepsake. And as for him, you can do whatever you want with him. Lon Fay clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. 7 days? I can't wait that long. Just thinking about what happened makes me want to skin him alive. His expression twisted with malice. Uncle, I'll ruin his reputation during these 7 days. I have a plan, but I'll need your cooperation. Wong Fong raised an eyebrow. Oh, what are you planning? Lon Fay leaned closer, whispering into Wong Feng's ear. A sinister smile spread across the older man's face. Interesting. If you succeed, you won't even need 7 days. I underestimated you, nephew. Let's proceed. Meanwhile, in his dormitory, Li Yunxiao was meditating, practicing the great evolution divine art. His spiritual awareness, far surpassing that of ordinary people, alerted him to the presence of 2 figures lurking outside his door. He frowned. Could they be thieves? He got up and opened the door, just in time to see an envelope fall to the ground. The letter bore the elegant inscription to Yun Xiao and was scented with a faint fragrance. Tearing it open, he found a love letter asking him to come to Maple Grove. Li Yunxiao's lips curled into a knowing smile. He thought of the Academy's Maple Grove, a popular spot for romantic rendezvous. Despite recognizing the ploy, he decided to play along. His figure flickered as he left for the forest. Shortly after, 2 figures appeared outside his dormitory. One of them skillfully picked the lock and entered. A few minutes later, they re-emerged, carefully locking the door behind them. "Did you set everything up?" one whispered. "Yes," the other replied. "Let's see how this loser handles it." Master Fei's plan is flawless. The 2 left, snickering, unaware that Li Yunxiao had observed everything from a distance. Returning to his room, he soon discovered their setup, his bed stuffed with women's undergarments. He chuckled bitterly. "Well played, Lon Fay. If you want to play dirty, I'll join the game." Half an hour later, Li Yunxiao arrived at Maple Grove. Suddenly, a soft cry pierced the air. "Help! Help me!" A young woman, her clothing torn and her face etched with fear, stumbled out from the shadows. Her fair skin glowed under the moonlight, and her disheveled appearance elicited pity. "Stop right there!" a voice roared. A man in luxurious attire emerged, his face twisted with anger and lust. "You should feel honored that I chose you," he said. The woman, spotting Li Yunxiao, ran toward him. "Senior, please save me," she cried, her tear-streaked face full of desperation. Li Yunxiao's sword materialized in his hand, its tip aimed at the woman's throat. His cold voice cut through the night. "Stop if you value your life." The woman froze, surprise flickering across her face. "Senior, he's trying to harm me. Please, save me." Her tears sparkled in the moonlight, making her appear even more pitiful. She begged, "I'll do anything you ask, just save me." But Li Yunxiao's expression remained indifferent. His eyes, cold and detached, betrayed no emotion. The man behind her sneered, "Boy, leave now, or you'll regret it. This girl belongs to me." The noble grabbed the woman's shoulder, ripping away her veil and exposing more of her delicate skin. The noble pushed her to the ground. She struggled and cried out, "Save me! Please, save me!" Li Yunxiao opened his eyes slightly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Don't worry, I'll save you very soon." Li Yunxiao's calm demeanor hinted at a deeper understanding of the situation, ready to turn the tables on those who sought to manipulate him. Meng Wu, trembling and distressed, struggled to rise from the ground. The noble sneered at Yunxiao and declared, "You dare to interfere with me? Do you even know who I am? I'm Lu Yitian, son of Lu Siki, the commander of the Imperial Guard." Yunxiao's expression remained indifferent, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "Oh, so you're Lu Yitian," he remarked casually, turning his attention back to Meng Wu. His voice softened, though a hint of irony lingered. "I am not the one saving you, they are." Meng Wu blinked in confusion. "They?" she asked, her voice trembling. Before she could receive an answer, a group emerged from the shadows surrounding the trio. The leader of the group pointed an accusing finger at Lu Yitian and roared, "Lu Yitian, you despicable beast! You've gone too far this time. You are nothing more than a shameless criminal." The moment Lu Yitian saw Teacher Fong, his bravado crumbled. His heart sank, and his legs began to tremble as he looked toward the figure standing among the crowd. Under the pale moonlight, the stern face of Teacher Fong, the infamous director of the teaching department, known as the God of Killing, glared at him with unrelenting intensity. "Lu Yitian, you animal!" Teacher Fong's voice boomed, and in the blink of an eye, he closed the distance between them. A resounding slap sent Lu Yitian sprawling to the ground. Han rallied the growing crowd, shouting, "Let's not let this monster go unpunished." He assaulted a fellow student. Justice must be served. As the mob closed in on Lu Yitian, his screams of agony echoed through the night. Teacher Fong turned to Meng Wu, his expression softening slightly. "Are you hurt? What's your name, and why were you with this scoundrels?" he asked. Meng Wu stammered, her voice barely audible. My name is Meng Wu. I didn't, Her words faltered and she looked down, overwhelmed by the situation. Before she could explain further, Yun Xiao stepped forward, placing an arm protectively around her shoulders. "Don't be afraid," he said reassuringly. "With me here, no one will hurt you." Meng Wu tensed under his touch, her face flushing with embarrassment. Yun Xiao's grip tightened slightly as he whispered soothing words into her ear, his tone playful. Despite her discomfort, she lacked the strength to resist. Teacher Fong, seemingly oblivious to Meng Wu's unease, nodded approvingly at Yun Xiao. "Good work, Yun Xiao. You handled this situation well. I'll ensure that beast is dealt with properly. Go ahead, Teacher Fong. Meng Wu will be safe with me," Yun Xiao replied smoothly. Meng Wu's eyes widened in silent protest, but her voice failed her because of Yun Xiao's finger. By this time, the crowd surrounding Lu Yitian had grown significantly. Students vented their fury, berating and striking him in turn. Lu Yitian, battered and humiliated, pleaded for mercy, his voice drowned out by the mob's cries for justice. In the shadows of the forest, Lon Fay and his accomplices observed the scene. One of the lackeys hissed, "Boss, we should save Lu Yitian." Lon Fay scowled, his eyes narrowing with hatred. "Calm down," he snapped. "If you rush out now, you'll only make things worse. Lu Yitian is finished, but we'll have our chance. Everything is in place for the next phase." The lackeys exchanged nervous glances before nodding. "We've done as you instructed, boss. Yun Xiao won't escape next time." Lon Fei's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Enjoy your victory while you can, Yun Xiao. The real game is just beginning." As the night wore on, the crowd began to disperse, satisfied that Lu Yitian would face the consequences of his actions. Teacher Fong, now standing over Lu Yitian's battered form, issued a final declaration. Lu Yitian will be reported to the dean immediately. He will not be allowed to remain in this academy. The students cheered at the announcement, their voices echoing through the trees. "Don't be afraid. It's over now." Yun Xiao reassured Meng Wu softly before passing her to Zhu Feifei, her dorm mate. As the group dispersed, a sudden commotion erupted nearby. The sound of gongs and drums echoed loudly, drawing everyone's attention. A crowd of students approached, their faces filled with anger. At the front was Lon Fay, his posture commanding. Teacher Fong frowned. "What is happening here?" he asked sharply. Lon Fay stepped forward, his voice indignant. "Teacher Fong, you're here." "That's perfect. There's a thief in the academy, a pervert who's been stealing female students' underwear." Gasps and exclamations filled the air as students expressed their outrage. The female students, in particular, were livid. The princess stepped forward, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "Teacher Fong, I've also been a victim. Please, bring this thief to justice." Lon Fay smirked inwardly and announced. The thief was seen fleeing toward Maple Grove. He relished the opportunity to implicate Yun Xiao. Yun Xiao, however, appeared unfazed. "Lon Fay, how are you so involved in this matter? What does it have to do with you?" he asked, his tone laced with suspicion. The question shifted the crowd's attention to Lon Fay, who faltered briefly. One of his lackeys, Meng Kuan, stepped in. "The boss is only trying to help. He's leading us to catch the thief because I was the one who saw the thief," he declared. Lon Fay, sensing the shift in the crowd's mood, shouted angrily, "Yun Xiao, what are you implying? Are you trying to distract us because you're guilty?" Meng Kuan, emboldened, added, "That's right. The thief's figure looked just like you." Yun Xiao chuckled softly. "Slander me, are we? What's your endgame, Lon Fay?" Lon Fay smirked triumphantly. "If you're innocent, then you won't mind letting us search your dormitory. Refusal will only prove your guilt." Yun Xiao's gaze hardened. "And who are you to demand such a thing?" The princess intervened, her voice firm. "I believe in Yun Xiao's innocence." "Meng Kuan, are you absolutely sure about what you saw?" Meng Kuan hesitated, clearly intimidated by the princess, but under Lon Fay's glare, he nodded. "I'm sure. It was him." Lon Fay pressed on. "Well, Yun Xiao, what do you have to say now?" Yun Xiao addressed Teacher Fong calmly. "Teacher Fong, I have no objections to a search, but if I'm proven innocent, I expect Lon Fay to explain himself." Teacher Fong nodded in agreement, and Lon Fay, feigning confidence, declared, "Fine. If you're innocent, I'll explain myself." With that, the group set off toward Yun Xiao's dormitory. Whispers and speculation filled the air as the students marched through the campus, their anticipation building. Despite the tension, Yun Xiao walked with unwavering confidence, a faint smile playing on his lips. The crowd finds Teacher Wong already standing at the dormitory gates. "I heard there was a perverted thief on the loose," Teacher Wong explained casually. Spotting another figure among the crowd, he added, "Oh, Teacher Fong, you're here too?" Teacher Fong, known for his stern and impartial nature, frowned as he assessed the situation. His years of experience hinted something was amiss. Meanwhile, Yun Xiao smirked and remarked, "Why are you at my dormitory? Didn't Meng Kuan claim the thief ran towards Maple Grove?" The veiled accusation in Yun Xiao's tone was unmistakable. Teacher Fong's expression darkened, and his voice turned stern as he addressed Teacher Wong. "What's going on here?" Teacher Wong, unbothered by the implications, retorted, "I'm here to catch the thief, just like you. This criminal is brazen and depraved. Once caught, I suggest they be expelled immediately to protect the students." Teacher Fong's gaze grew colder. "Catching thieves is important, but if anyone dares to manipulate the situation and falsely accuse someone, I won't tolerate it." Yun Xiao's voice cut through the tension, his tone calm, yet laced with irony. "Since Teacher Wong values fairness so much, I'm relieved. Please go ahead and search my dormitory." He unlocked the door and gestured for the group to enter. Teacher Wong hesitated momentarily, noting Yun Xiao's composed demeanor. Doubt flickered in his mind, but the confident nod from Lon Fay seemed to reassure him. "Search it thoroughly," Teacher Wong instructed. Everyone enters into the room. Yun Xiao followed, his posture relaxed. His gaze lingered on Lon Fay, whose expression betrayed a hint of unease. Minutes passed, and the search yielded nothing. Frustration etched across Lon Fay's face. Realizing the growing tension, Teacher Wong interjected. This bedroom isn't very large. It's clear that Yun Xiao is innocent. The thief must be someone else. Princess, visibly relieved, turned to Yun Xiao with a mixture of irritation and admiration. He had this all planned, she thought, angered by how much she had worried. Attempting to end the debacle, Teacher Wong announced, since the matter is settled, let's all return to our duties. Yun Xiao's voice rang out, stopping everyone in their tracks. Teacher Wong, didn't you just claim the thief as someone else? Are you not going to pursue them? Caught off guard, Teacher Wong replied tersely, without witnesses or evidence, it'll be difficult to identify the culprit. The school will handle it. Yun Xiao's smirk widened. No witnesses? Didn't Meng Kuan claim he saw it with his own eyes? Or is Meng Kuan's testimony unreliable? If that's the case, I must suspect that Lon Fay, his master, is the real mastermind. Lon Fay, already on edge, snapped, Don't slander me, Yun Xiao? Yun Xiao's tone turned icy. The evidence clears my name. Now, it's your turn to prove your innocence. Allow us to search your dormitory. Lon Fay bristled at the accusation but maintained his composure. Fine, he said, feigning righteousness. If you want to search, then search. But this isn't over, Yun Xiao. The group made their way to Lon Fay's dormitory, located in an exclusive area reserved for the wealthy. Lon Fay unlocked the door with a flourish and stepped aside. Search as much as you like, he said coldly. But if you damage anything, don't expect to afford the consequences. Han and Qin entered first, emerging moments later with a locked wooden box. Young Master Yun, this box can't be opened, Han reported. Lon Fay's expression darkened. That's my personal belongings. It requires my key to open. He produced a golden key, inserted it into the lock, and opened the box with a click. The moment the lid lifted, gasps filled the room. Inside were various stolen items, including pieces of girls' underwear. Teacher Wong's face turned ashen, realizing the situation was beyond salvaging. Lon Fay, however, was struck speechless. His shock quickly turned to denial as he shouted, This isn't mine. I've been framed. Yun Xiao's voice was calm but cutting. Framed? Didn't you just say this box was accessible only with your key? Lon Fay's retort died in his throat. Princess, furious and humiliated, shouted, You pervert! I'll make sure the dean expels you. The crowd erupted in anger, with chants of expel, expel, echoing through the dormitory halls. Qin rummaged through the box and uncovered another surprise. There's half a box of soap in here, he remarked. Han's derisive laugh followed. Rumor has it Lon Fay has a peculiar habit of dropping soap in the boys' bathhouse and making others pick it up. Disgust rippled through the crowd. Male students recoiled, some visibly nauseated. Lon Fay, overwhelmed, collapsed to the ground, trembling. Yun Xiao addressed the crowd with righteous indignation. The evidence speaks for itself. Lon Fay has wronged countless students. However, we must allow the academy to handle this fairly. Let the teachers decide his punishment. Teacher Fong, impressed by Yun Xiao's composure, declared firmly, I will report this to the dean immediately. Rest assured, justice will be served. Princess added vehemently, if this pervert isn't expelled, we'll take this to my father. I refuse to coexist with him. The students cheered in agreement, their determination unwavering. Lon Fay, desperate, clung to Teacher Wong. Uncle, help me! Teacher Wong shook him off, his voice cold and dismissive. You've brought this upon yourself. With that, he pushed through the crowd and left, unwilling to risk his reputation further. Lon Fay's cries were drowned out by the crowd's chants. Defeated and disgraced, he remained on the floor as the students dispersed, their demands for justice echoing in his ears. The academy had made its decision. Lon Fay, caught red-handed for stealing girls' clothes, had been expelled, with the evidence against him irrefutable. The college leaders unanimously agreed that he would never be admitted again. Shouting, Young Master Yun, Han rushed over early the next morning and says there are two pieces of news, one good, one bad. Which do you want to hear? Yun Xiao looked up leisurely. The good news first. I assume it's that Lon Fay has been expelled. Hanbai gave a thumbs up, clearly impressed. You're right. The bad news is that the supervisor for this year's academic exam is Lon Fay's uncle, Teacher Wong. We're finished. None of us will stand a chance. Yun Xiao sneered. Finished? If he doesn't know his place, I'll make sure he follows his nephew out. Han, clearly stunned, says, Young Master Yun, you're so domineering. But don't mess with him. Wong Fong is a teacher here, not like Lon Fay, who is just a student. Humph, I don't care who he is. What about Lon Xen? Yun Xiao suddenly asked. Han's face turned pale. I almost forgot. Lon Xen has already announced that he wants to avenge his brother. This could be troublesome. Yun Xiao's smile deepened, his eyes gleaming with intrigue. Oh, that's just perfect. He had been thinking about the five-color divine stone Lon Xen possessed. At the same time, a tense assessment was underway on the fourth floor of the Alchemy Guild Tower. Luo Yunong focused intently on a giant battle axe suspended in the air, glowing a fierce red from the quenching true fire that enveloped it. The intense heat radiated outward, forcing the air to shimmer. Luo Yunong spread her fingers and golden starlight spilled out, surrounding the battle axe. The once violent weapon began to stabilize, its red hue softening into a steady, powerful glow. Luo Yunong commanded softly, "Condense!" The axe shrank rapidly before falling into her hands as a miniaturized version, now complete. Luo Yunong held the battle axe, her face lighting up with joy as she approached the men, her respect for the white-bearded old man, Master Su, evident. Master Su, please take a look. Master Su gave the axe a cursory glance and smiled. No need to examine it further. This Hongyang axe has reached the level of a first-grade upper-tier Xian weapon. Yunong, you've passed the test? Applause erupted from the other men, their admiration for her clear in their expressions. Luo Yunong's eyes sparkled with pride. Thank you, Master Su, and to all the masters. Master Su shook his head. This success is due to your own hard work. We had little to do with it. I'm just curious, though. How did you manage to incorporate sky crystal sand into the red copper? You failed this part in your previous assessments. The other men nodded in agreement, puzzled by Luo Yunong's success. Luo Yunong paused, recalling a moment of advice from Yun Xiao. His words had come back to her. Although red copper belongs to gold, it has a strong fire attribute. But if there's sky crystal sand, it becomes tricky. Because sky crystal sand is water-based, it counters the fire attribute of red copper. To fix this, just treat sky crystal sand as an impurity and remove it with quenching essence. With a flash of understanding, Luo Yunong nodded. The memory of Yun Xiao's advice had guided her to success. Master Su's eyes widened in realization. So that's how you did it. Yunong, your discovery shows your brilliance. I'll report to the king tomorrow. He'll be thrilled, and we'll hold a grand banquet to celebrate your achievement. Luo Yunong blushed slightly, but her exhaustion made her appear even more radiant. Master Su, please, no banquet. I prefer not to make a big fuss. Yen Lei, standing behind Master Su, smiled. This is a great occasion. How can we not celebrate? You're the rising star of Tianshui Kingdom. Your achievements are unmatched. His Majesty himself will surely want to honor you. Luo Yunong smiled softly, humbled by the praise, though she was more focused on the work ahead. Just then, another voice interrupted. President Su, I have something to report. Jaron, the other new alchemist, is deeply poisoned. Everyone turned shocked as Su Yuanqiao spoke with a sly grin. I've discovered Jaron used a banned item, the Blood Flame Stone, during the last assessment. The room went silent, confusion and concern rippling through the crowd. Master Su's face darkened. Su Yuanqiao, what are you implying? Luo Yunong, sensing the tension, quickly excused herself. Master Su, I'll take my leave for now. Su Han shook his head with a sigh. No need to leave, Yunshang. As a core member of the guild, you have the right to know everything. You're entitled to stay. Su Yuanqiao's face twisted with smugness as he presented a list. This is the evidence. Jaron bought detoxification materials and has been secretly acquiring the detoxification pill. I believe he's been using poison to counteract poison. The other men glanced at each other nervously as the list was passed around. The details were too precise, too alarming. It seemed Su Yuanqiao had done his homework and Jaron's fate was sealed. Bring him in. Master Su commanded, his voice grave. Soon, Jaron entered. He greeted Su Han and nodded to the others, though his gaze lingered on Luo Yunong with a quiet admiration. I just heard about Lord Yunshang's promotion. Truly remarkable. Luo Yunong acknowledged him with a smile. Lord Jia, you're too kind. Jaron turned his attention back to Su Han. President Su, I've been in seclusion refining. What is it that requires my attention? Master Su said. Su Yuanqiao suspects you used the blood flame stone. We need an explanation. Jaron's face hardened, but he quickly regained his composure. Su Yuanqiao, you're the one who owes an explanation. Not me. The room fell silent, everyone stunned by the display of Jaron's immense soul power. The situation had taken an unexpected turn. Su Yuanqiao, his eyes wide with disbelief, stammered, This can't be right. He was poisoned. I'm sure of it. But Jaron's grin told a different story, his confidence undeniable. Su Yuanqiao tries to examine Jaron with his soul power, but his soul power was deflected by Jaron's soul power. This made Su Yuanqiao bleed from his eyes and nose. Su Yuanqiao's soul was deeply injured, and a mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth. With disbelief in his eyes, he exclaimed, How can your soul power be so strong? Jaron responded with a cold smile, mocking, I am a true alchemist. Naturally, my soul power is far superior to those counterfeits. The insult caused Su Yuanqiao to tremble with rage, and he spat another mouthful of blood. All right, he muttered, his eyes dimming. His entire body seemed to deflate, drained of all vitality. His spiritual energy was quickly siphoned away, leaving him looking aged and frail. Su Han, watching in stunned silence, sighed. Su Yuanqiao, why are you doing this? Su Yuanqiao's spirit seemed dazed. Trembling, he muttered, President, I'm old and weak. I wish to retire and return home to spend my remaining years peacefully. Please grant me this request. The room fell into stunned silence. Su Yuanqiao's collapse, both physically and mentally, had been swift and absolute. Even Jaron was somewhat surprised, though inwardly he was elated. He had only practiced the soul refining technique for 5 days, and yet his soul power was already enough to crush someone of Su Yuanqiao's stature. For such a skill, even 50 years of servitude would be worth it. Su Han shook his head with a mix of disappointment and empathy in his eyes as he addressed the others. Su Yuanqiao has retired due to poor health. All grievances with him are hereby forgiven. No one is to harass him under any circumstance. His gaze settled on Jaron. Jaron smiled slightly, and with his arms crossed, he accepted the president's order. Su Han asked Jaron to help Luo Yunong to collect her alchemist badge. Jaron nodded and left with Luo Yunong to handle the necessary formalities. Master Jia, I have a request, she said cautiously. Jaron raised an eyebrow. Oh, what is it, Miss Yunong? Luo Yunong explained. I have a student who, due to physical reasons, is unable to practice martial arts, but he's extremely interested in refining and has acquired considerable knowledge. I was hoping you might consider taking him on as a disciple. Jaron frowned. A disciple? You're an alchemy master yourself, Miss Yunong. Why would you need my help? Luo Yunong sighed. His identity is special. As the leader of the National Guards, I can't afford a master-disciple relationship with him. He's the eldest grandson of Lord Jinghua and the son of General Fai Long. The revelation caught Jaron's attention. I see. I've heard of the eldest grandson of Lord Jinghua. A martial arts failure, wasn't he? But a martial arts failure with weak body would also struggle to succeed in alchemy. Luo Yunong nodded. Indeed, but this person is unique. While he may not be able to become a martial artist, I believe he can still make a significant contribution to alchemy. If you don't mind, I'd appreciate you guiding him. Even if he cannot become your formal disciple, I want to at least give him the opportunity to learn. Jaron's expression turned serious. If he meets the minimum standard of an apprentice alchemist, I will accept him. But this is a favor to you, Miss Yunshang, he said, not knowing that the person they are talking about is Li Yunxiao. Luo Yunshang's face brightened. Thank you, Lord Jia, she said as she watched Jaron leave. Reflecting on the conversation, she knew that by sending the young man to Jaron, she was not only providing him an opportunity, but also repaying the favor. 3 days later, the annual assessment at Jialan Academy was underway. The Academy's martial arts arena, a grand structure built by the former president of the Tianshui Kingdom's alchemist guild Yang Di, was the site of the assessment. Its massive size and imposing architecture stood as a testament to the Academy's legacy. Nearby stood a statue of Gu Feiyang, with one hand resting on a sword's hilt and a faint smile on his lips, a tribute to the legendary figure created by his student after his tragic fall. Li Yunxiao stood quietly beside the statue as 2 students walked by, speaking in hushed tones. I have only opened 2 chakras. Will I be eliminated? The other one remarked. Don't worry, only the young master of the Li family will get eliminated this time. Han, Chun, and the princess approached him with concern in their eyes. Yunxiao just ignore them, they said. Teacher Wang's voice suddenly rang out, silencing the crowd. Everyone's here. Those who aren't, they'll be eliminated. This year, I'm hosting the assessment. He looked around at the gathered students with a sinister smile. We're changing the rules this year. To pass, you must open your chakra and display 1,000 pounds of force. Unlike the previous years, satisfying one condition is no longer enough to pass the test. Anyone who fails a single condition will be eliminated. His gaze lingered on Li Yunxiao, a clear challenge in his eyes. Wong Fong knew that Li Yunxiao had defeated Lon Fay, which means he can pass the strength test. So he changed the rules and was eager to see how the young man would handle this, not knowing Yunxiao has already opened his chakras. Li Yunxiao, unbothered, met his gaze coldly. You want to see? Then open your eyes and watch carefully. With that, a blue light bloomed from his heart chakra. As he walked forward, each step opened a chakra, the light of his energy shining. The root chakra, the ego chakra, the crown chakra, 7 chakras, all opened, lighting up his entire body in a dazzling display. The crowd gasped in awe. Li Yunxiao stood tall, a figure of power and grace, as his spiritual energy flowed freely, overwhelming the arena with his presence. Wong Fong stared in disbelief. How is it possible? Isn't he a waste? Everyone knows he's a well-known failure. But he's so close to entering the martial warrior realm. Wong Fong had initially thought he could defeat Lon Fay through the use of elixirs or martial arts techniques. After all, Li Yunxiao had long been infamous for his damaged meridians, which made it impossible for him to practice martial arts. The students watched in stunned silence as Li Yunxiao took a step forward. He suddenly leaned back and struck out with a punch, his fist landing on the force-measuring stone with a powerful blow. Bang! Massive explosion rang through the arena, sending a shockwave through the air. The energy released struck the force-measuring stone, leaving an imprint of his fist. The onlookers gasped in disbelief. This can't be real, someone whispered. How could he leave such a mark? Is he even a warrior? The power behind that strike, it's more than what a newly advanced warrior could do. The students were in a state of shock. They couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Han and Chen hugged each other. Li Yunxiao, you're good at hiding it. the princess said, her voice tinged with excitement. Wong Fong, however, looked livid, his pride crushed. He cursed Lon Fay in his mind for being such a failure, unable to detect the true power behind Li Yunxiao's abilities. Are you all satisfied now? Li Yunxiao's cold voice rang out. His eyes finally locked onto Wong Fong, and he sneered. Teacher Wong, I've got more important things to do. I'll take my leave now. His words stung like a slap to the face, and Wong Fong seethed with rage. However, he could do nothing but suppress his anger. The moment he stepped forward, the ground cracked beneath him. But before he could recover, a man in white stepped in front of Li Yunxiao, halting his progress. The man smiled, his presence radiating superiority. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Lon Xen, from the graduating class of the academy and the leader of the Xian gang. The mention of Lon Xen's name sent a ripple of surprise through the crowd. The students' eyes widened and whispers spread. Lon Xen's imposing presence seemed to demand attention. Li Yunxiao, however, was unfazed. He had dealt with more than enough arrogant individuals in his time. With a dismissive gesture, he pointed at Lon Xen and said coldly, "A good dog doesn't block the road." Lon Xen's fury boiled over, but he quickly masked his emotions. "I'm not here to argue with you," Lon Xen said through gritted teeth. "I came because of my good-for-nothing brother." Li Yunxiao's response was swift. "When you beat the little dog, the big dog comes. You?" Lon Xen's face twisted with rage. "Are all the Li family this uneducated?" Li Yunxiao raised an eyebrow. "Educate your sister. Your family has been at odds with mine for years, and so many have died. I crippled your brother, and now you come to lecture me? You must be a fool. Little bastard, if you want to argue, I'll make you regret coming into this world." Lon Xen snarled. Li Yunxiao clapped. "Yeah, that's right, a ruffian is a ruffian. Why pretend otherwise?" Lon Xen's face turned an even darker shade of red, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to challenge you." Lon Xen produced a letter of challenge. "Originally, the situation with my brother was just a petty matter, a childish prank," Lon Xen continued, his voice dripping with disdain. "But now it's personal. I must teach you a lesson for your actions." Wong Fong, watching from a distance, fumed with frustration. He had spent so much time spreading rumors to salvage Lon Fay's reputation, only for Lon Xen to undo all his work. Now, the possibility of Lon Fay returning to the academy was completely shattered, and Lon Xen's actions only secured his own standing as the true leader of the Lon family. "What do you think of my challenge?" Lon Xen asked, looking at Li Yunxiao with an arrogant smirk. The students whispered among themselves, speculating what Li Yunxiao would do. Some feared that a fight with Lon Xen, 9-star martial warrior, would be a dangerous move. The princess rushed forward, her face full of concern. "Lon Xen, this isn't right. You're in your final year, and you're already on the verge of becoming a martial master. Li Yunxiao is still just a martial apprentice. Do you have no shame?" Li Yunxiao sneered. "The younger brother steals women's underwear. How good can the older brother be? When has the Lon family ever cared about face?" Lon Xen's face turned crimson with humiliation, and he scoffed. "You're just scared. You want a woman to fight for you? So this is the eldest grandson of Duke DONGHUA and the son of General Feilong." Li Yunxiao's gaze remained cold, and before Lon Xen could say more, he spat a mouthful of spit directly at him. It flew with such speed that Lon Xen could barely react in time. Li Yunxiao raised his middle finger, smirking as he said, "I accept your challenge. 3 days from now, in the martial arts arena, I'll make you kneel and lick my shoes." The crowd stood in stunned silence, unable to process what they had just heard. Han and Chun were terrified, rushing over to stand by Li Yunxiao, urging him not to be reckless. The princess anxiously said, "Li Yunxiao, don't do it. This isn't the time for you to be showing off." Li Yunxiao gave them a warm smile, and the three of them suddenly felt a strange sense of reassurance. Despite the danger, they found themselves believing in him completely. Lon Xen, seething with anger, struggled to maintain his composure. You said it. If you don't show up in 3 days, there will be no place for you in the academy. Li Yunxiao didn't even glance back. He only laughed faintly, his voice carrying over his shoulder. Don't worry, I won't be washing my feet for the next 3 days. Lon Xen's face twisted with rage as he watched Li Yunxiao walk away, his mind seething with plans for the upcoming battle. The conflict between the Li and Lon families had spanned decades, but now it was personal. Li Yunxiao's eyes narrowed as he walked away, a cold resolve settling in his heart. It would begin with Lon Xen, and from there he would uproot the entire Lon family. Without a word, he left the academy heading straight for the Alchemist Guild, his mind set on the challenges ahead. In the Alchemist Tower, Li Yunxiao scanned the room and noticed an alchemy apprentice deeply focused on preparing a potion. The faint smell of medicinal herbs lingered in the air. The apprentice was engrossed in the process, carefully channeling his soul power into the potion vessel. Li Yunxiao, observing the scene, couldn't resist offering advice. You've added too much cross-refining grass? You need to neutralize it with a dust flower or it'll explode in 5 breaths? The apprentice glanced up, noticing Li Yunxiao for the first time, and responded with irritation. What do you know? Don't disturb me. 3 breaths, 2 breaths, 1 breath. Li Yunxiao murmured under his breath. At the final count, the potion, which had been calm until then, suddenly began to bubble violently before exploding with a loud bang. The apprentice stood there stunned, drenched in potion. Explosions like this were a common occurrence in the hall, so no one paid much attention. How did you know there was too much cross-refining grass? The apprentice finally asked, still shaken. Li Yunxiao smiled. It's just something I can smell. I'm looking for Jaron. Could you pass the message for me? The apprentice frowned. Master Jaron is in seclusion. I'm not qualified to find him. At that moment, a beautiful woman approached, concern evident in her voice. Brother, did you fail again? Are you hurt? The apprentice, Lu Yu, shook his head. I'm fine, just wet. It's a waste of these materials. I feel like a failure. Li Yunxiao turned to the woman, smiling. Miss Lu Yao. She turned in surprise. Ah, it's you. With a gentle bow, Li Yunxiao said, It's an honor that the beauty remembers me. Lu Yao chuckled. Last time, Master Liang, when you praised your single prescription highly, Lu Yu looked at Li Yunxiao with interest. Are you an alchemist too? Li Yunxiao nodded. I used to be, but not anymore. I need to find Jaron. Would you be kind enough to pass the message? Lu Yao blinked in surprise before replying. Master Jaron just came out of seclusion. Follow me. She turned to Lu Yu. Brother, don't give up. Keep trying and you'll succeed. Lu Yu sighed, his tone heavy with frustration. Sister, you have always been the one earning money for my studies. I don't wish to burden you anymore. Maybe I just don't have the talent to become an alchemist. Lu Yao's eyes softened. Brother, don't be like this. I believe in you. You can do it. Despite the encouragement, Lu Yu looked down, his resolve waning. Li Yunxiao smiled and said, just add 3 less cross-refining grass. If the color is too light, add 1 cloud mushroom. Trust me, you can do it. Lu Yu's eyes widened in surprise. Are you really an alchemist? Lu Yao encouraged her brother. You should try it. Last time, Master Liang praised his prescription. After a moment of thought, Lu Yu nodded. All right, I'll give it a shot. Li Yunxiao smiled and followed Lu Yao up to the 2nd floor. Soon, they arrived at a room. Lu Yao knocked gently, and a voice from inside responded impatiently, as if disturbed in the middle of his practice. Yunxiao said, Jaron, it's me, open the door. Moments later, the door opened with a bang. Jaron tried to hug Yunxiao, only to be stopped by a direct kick to his face. Lu Yao was left in stunned silence. She had never seen Jaron, usually so proud and arrogant, act so deferential toward a young man. Not polite, but downright respectful, more respectful than when he met the guild president. Li Yunxiao said to her, You can go now. Li Yunxiao entered the room. Inside, it was spacious, filled with various refining equipment and formations. At the far corner was a small resting area with soft leather sofa and a bed. The life of a magic refiner was grueling, requiring day and night practice, but it earned them the respect they had earned. Jaron, still beaming with excitement, spoke in a rush. Young Master Yun, I not only recovered all my soul power, but I also broke through. I actually made a real breakthrough. Li Yunxiao glanced at him with mild indifference. I came here to ask you to help me refine 2 pills. Yes, of course. Jaron immediately agreed. Li Yunxiao continued, I need an origin-impacting pill and an origin-blasting pill. Jaron's eyes widened in disbelief. Origin-impacting pill and origin-blasting pill? These are close to second-level pills. I just became a first-level alchemist. I'm afraid I won't be able to make them. Li Yunxiao sneered. I'm here, aren't I? Don't worry. Just start preparing the materials now. I don't have much time. Jaron was confused but complied. He quickly arranged for 3 sets of materials to be prepared, though he doubted they would be enough. Why do you need 3 sets? Li Yunxiao asked, raising an eyebrow. Jaron hesitated before explaining a first-level alchemist has a success rate of over 60%, but for something like the origin-impacting pill and origin-blasting pills, the chances are lower. 3 sets should cover it, though I've already asked them to find more. Li Yunxiao said nothing but walked to the refining equipment and took charge. Let's begin. You will follow my instructions. Jaron, still in disbelief, followed Li Yunxiao's every command. The refining process was meticulous, requiring a careful balance of medicinal properties, and he quickly found himself nearly exhausted by the effort. Okay, collect the elixirs, Li Yunxiao ordered, and Jaron, unable to take any more, rushed to complete the task. The 2 elixirs, origin-impacting and origin-blasting pills, floated gently in the air before landing in his hands. Jaron stared at them in awe. I can't believe it. I actually succeeded, and I made 2 pills at once. How is this possible? The exhaustion faded as he marveled at the results, but Li Yunxiao was less impressed. He took the pills, examined them briefly, and frowned. Why is the purity so low? You're calling this refined? It's garbage? Jaron's eyes widened in shock, but he didn't dare argue. He simply stood there, stunned by Li Yunxiao's unrelenting criticism. Li Yunxiao muttered in frustration, You look like you're almost exhausted. I have to purify it myself. It's troublesome. He then added, But if it's just purification, my soul power as advanced apprentice should be enough. He wrapped the elixir in his soul power and hovered over the formation. With a series of hand seals, a stream of fire shot up from the formation and began to burn the elixir. Jaron stood in stunned silence, his eyes wide. Purify? Can the finished product really be purified? Isn't it only the raw materials that can be? He asked, incredulous. Li Yunxiao, uninterested in explaining, continued to change the seals with practiced ease, carefully controlling the burn on the formation. Jaron watched intently, his mind racing to comprehend the hand seals. Although he had never seen these specific refining hand seals before, each one seemed oddly familiar, as if it contained something important. Yet, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't quite grasp it, and he scratched his head in frustration. After a while, Li Yunxiao sighed, a sense of dissatisfaction lingering. It's done, he said, holding the 2 purified pills in his hands. It's only purified to this extent. My soul power is still too low. With the origin-impacting pill, he was certain to reach the 1-star martial warrior within 3 days. That would give him the strength to defeat Lon Xen, the 9-star martial warrior. As a backup, he also carried a origin-blasting pill, ensuring that he would face no risk. Jaron, lost in thought, silently counted the hand seals, 72 in total. But when he glanced at the purified pills, his mind went blank, and he murmured, Flawless pill? Generally, pills are classified not only by their level, but also by their purity. A pill with a purity over 90% was considered a flawless pill. Li Yunxiao left the room, and as he walked past the lobby on the first floor of the Alchemist Guild, he overheard Lu Yu's excited voice shouting, "Success! I finally succeeded!" Lu Yao smiled happily and, seeing Li Yunxiao, gave him a grateful smile. Li Yunxiao responded with a thumbs up before leaving the guild and heading back to academy to continue his secluded practice. He knew that to defeat Lon Xen, he needed to condense his Yuan energy and break through to martial warrior level. If he wanted to challenge a 9-star warrior, he had to be fully prepared. Meanwhile, in the dean's office at the academy, the dean Zhong Lishan listened to Luo Yunong's report on her recent advancements and chuckled, his old face breaking into a smile. At just 21, you've reached the 3-star martial lord realm and become a first-level alchemist. Your future is limitless. I'm planning to announce at the banquet that you'll be promoted to vice president of the academy. Luo Yunong was taken aback. Vice Dean, how could that be possible? The dean interrupted her, his voice firm. If you can't do it, I can't think of anyone else. You are cultivating soul power, and you're one of the 5 commanders of the National Guards. Only you can command the respect of everyone. Luo Yunong fell silent. Refusing would likely upset the dean, so she simply remained quiet. The office was heavy with silence until a commotion outside the window drew their attention. A large group of students was heading toward the martial arts arena. What's going on? Why is everyone heading to the arena? She asked, puzzled. The dean smiled. It's quite interesting. Li Yunxiao, one of your students, has accepted a challenge from Lon Xen, leader of the Xian gang, to fight for Lon Fay's honor today. Luo Yunong's eyes widened. Li Yunxiao accepted Lon Xen's challenge? What happened while I was away? The dean briefly recounted the events and then scoffed. These students from the powerful class are becoming more and more unruly. Let them fight. It'll be good for them. Luo Yunong, however, was alarmed. No, I must stop this. Li Yunxiao is just a waste who can't even open his chakras. How could he possibly defeat Lon Xen? He's clearly walking into trouble. The dean's eyes narrowed in surprise. What? A waste who can't open his chakras? Yunong, we've both been deceived. During the 3-day test at the training ground, he opened 7 chakras and punched with 1,000-pound force. It seems this kid is far more scheming than we thought. I suspect he's already broken through to the martial warrior level. Luo Yunong, stunned, murmured to herself, 1,000-pound punch? That can't be true. If he'd broken through, I would have noticed. It's impossible. The dean chuckled. Well, let's go see for ourselves. I'm curious to see where he stands now. Meanwhile, in the tenfold gravity room, Senior Yu remarked to Luolan, today, that loser is fighting Lon Xen. Are we really not going to watch? Luolan's eyes narrowed with disdain. You go ahead. I don't have time for that. Lon Xen's just picking on the weak. Only Lin Yu and Bai Chungfeng are true strong men in my eyes. Senior Yu felt uncomfortable as he noticed Luolan's focus shift to Lin Yu. Determined, Senior Yu left on his own to watch the fight. Luolan watched him go, scoffing. He's only interested in watching others fight. Pathetic. Suddenly a familiar figure walked past Luolan, catching her off guard. Li Yunxiao, she whispered, her voice tinged with disbelief. At the martial arts arena, a large crowd had gathered. However, as time passed and Li Yunxiao failed to appear, frustration began to grow. That kid's not coming, is he? Someone muttered. Probably not, another person added. Better to lose face than risk his life? Lon Xen, sitting in the arena, was clearly annoyed by the delay, but remained composed, closing his eyes as the discussions around him continued. Suddenly, a voice broke the murmurs. That useless kid is finally here. Everyone turned to see a figure approaching in the distance. Li Yunxiao walked slowly, his presence commanding attention. He moved as though he were out for a casual stroll, as if the competition was merely a leisurely outing. The princess squeezed through the crowd in a fit of rage and rushed toward Li Yunxiao. You idiot! Why did you come? Go back quickly, he will kill you, she shouted. Before anything more could be said, Luo Yunong appeared in front of him. Her voice rang out angrily. Get back! Stop causing trouble. I now declare the duel cancelled. The crowd fell silent in shock. Cancelled, they murmured in disbelief. No wonder he's so confident. Looks like he had a trick up his sleeve. You've really embarrassed the Li family. Someone spat. Luo Yunxiang's gaze sharpened, her voice cold. I only know that Li Yunxiao is my student, and I have an obligation to protect him. Li Yunxiao, standing behind Luo Yunxiang, suddenly spoke up. Teacher Luo, I am the one who is your student, so why are you protecting Lon Xen? Everyone, you can leave. It will only take a few minutes to destroy Lon Xen. Luo Yunxiang and the others were stunned. Without waiting for a response, Li Yunxiao stepped onto the martial arts field, walking toward Lon Xen with determination. Luo Yunxiang clenched her fists in frustration, unable to stop the duel. She could only focus, prepared to intervene if necessary. She couldn't let Li Yunxiao be harmed. Lon Xen sneered from the other side. I thought you'd chicken out, he taunted. Li Yunxiao's expression hardened. Do you think you can extend your lifeline by saying a few words? His voice was, and a surge of energy radiating from his body. Luo Yunxiang's eyes widened in shock. A warrior, she muttered under her breath. Though the dean had told her Li Yunxiao had made progress, seeing it firsthand left her stunned. Just a few days ago, he had been nothing more than a waste with no chakra. Now, he was a martial warrior. The crowd gasped in disbelief. No wonder my useless brother couldn't match him, Lon Xen sneered, a hint of anger creeping into his voice. With a burst of energy, Lon Xen's aura exploded, causing the air around him to spiral. The pressure was palpable, and students near the training ground felt it shift. Impressive, a teacher remarked, nodding with approval. Lon Xen is truly extraordinary. Within a month, he'll likely break through to Martial Master realm. One of the other teachers chuckled. Look at their auras. I doubt Li Yunxiao will last even one move. Wong Fong stood to the side, his face grim. He wanted Lon Xen to be defeated so that Lon Fay gets another chance to rise, but deep down he knew it was a far-off dream. The dean suddenly entering said, "One move? I don't think so. I think you're all underestimating Li Yunxiao. This duel might be worth watching." The other teachers looked at him in surprise. Luo Yunxiang, too, narrowed her eyes as she focused on Li Yunxiao. His movements were slow, seemingly labored under the immense pressure Lon Xen's aura exuded. It seemed as though each step drained him. However, the dean, being a powerful martial artist of the Martial King realm, noticed something subtle. He observed that with each step Li Yunxiao took, the surrounding space seemed to vibrate, as if in harmony with his movements. It was a strange sensation, something he had never seen before. Lon Xen smirked. You're already struggling under my pressure, and you still think you can defeat me? His right palm began to glow with a whirl of energy, pulsating outward like ripples on water. But as the attack surged toward Li Yunxiao, something unexpected happened. Li Yunxiao's body suddenly shot upward, breaking through the attack's wind. The ground beneath his feet shattered as he soared into the air, faster than anyone could follow. Lon Xen's eyes widened. What? So fast? Li Yunxiao's speed was beyond anything Lon Xen had anticipated. You think you can escape? Not a chance. With a flick of his wrist, the vortex expanded, extending the attack range dramatically, trapping Li Yunxiao in midair. But Yunxiao twisted midair, his body shifting in an almost impossible way, dodging the attack effortlessly. Lon Xen's expression turned to one of disbelief. What kind of movement technique is this? He's moving in the air. As Li Yunxiao's body shifted once more, he planted a foot firmly in the air, defying gravity. The dean's eyes widened in horror. That step, it wasn't just a movement. It was perfectly aligned with the frequency of the heavens and earth. He's pulling the power of the world into his body. As the golden light enveloped Li Yunxiao, the gathered energy seemed to rush into his body, drawing power from the very world around him. The dean couldn't believe his eyes. He's borrowing the power of heavens and earth, he exclaimed in shock. This statement left everyone in a state of disbelief. While Yunxiao was floating in the air looking majestic and his eyes shining golden, Will Yun Xiao be able to defeat Lon Xen with such a technique? Find out in the next episode. And that wraps up today's recap. For another such treat, subscribe to the channel so that I can bring more such content to you, and you don't miss the daily uploads. Do it. Subscribe. Please subscribe, and don't forget to like, comment, and share the video. See you with another such treat.